What's up, Net Soldiers on the Alliance, and welcome back to another video. Today we are doing the best of the best Star Wars lightsaber battles out of the Skywalker Saga. If you guys want to see me do any other specific tier lists in the future, let me know in the comments below, and if I use your suggestion, I will give you a shout out in the video. Now before we begin, I have an announcement. Check this out. That's looking good, right? I'm super excited about my new merch that just got launched on my channel. If you guys want to pick up a shirt for yourself, check out the description below, or below the description or something. It's somewhere down there. You can find it, you can buy it. I mean, if you don't like it, you're probably lame. You probably don't get girls, but I mean, hey. Now with that said, guys, if you enjoy this video, please remember to like, subscribe, maybe even turn on your notifications. I really appreciate that. YouTube pretty much needs that nowadays for you guys to even get my videos, so please make sure to hit that bell. Now with that said, let us begin. So as you can see, our top tier is amazing. Our second tier is it's good. Our third tier is it's fine. And our fourth tier is that's booty. Now as you can see, there is no tier that says, oh, this is awful, because in the end of the day, there is no truly terrible lightsaber fight, because all lightsaber fights are good in their own way. So with that said, let's begin. Okay, so these are actually listed chronologically, so I guess I'll just kind of go chronologically. Let's just start with the very first one. The very first lightsaber fight, as far as episode 1 goes, was Darth Maul and Qui-Gon in the desert. I always had like a little soft spot for this lightsaber fight, I think mostly because when I was younger, I had a game called Star Wars The Phantom Menace, and it followed the events of the Star Wars games. I remember playing as Qui-Gon in this part of the map, and you get to the Tatooine level, and Darth Maul is so hard. Like, it's the toughest fight I remember from my childhood. And I could barely beat him, and I remember like trying so many times, and I finally did, and I felt so great about myself when I finally beat him. And so yeah, that might be the reason why I really like still enjoy this fight. But overall, I do realize that it is fine. It's not bad. It's short and it's sweet, so it's fine. Next one, I don't think I really have to even explain this one. This one, the final duel in episode 1. If you hate episode 1, no matter how much you despise it, hate the characters, hate the dialogue, hate the story, hate the politics, no matter how much you hate episode 1, you cannot hate this lightsaber fight. Even if you think it's over choreographed. I've heard the complaints about it in every other shape and form. End of the day, this fight, it's amazing, guys. Come on. We have to say, it is so good. If you hate episode 1 for everything else, this final lightsaber fight makes the entire movie worth it. So you got to give credit where credit's due. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. All right, moving on to our next one, we actually have Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku at the end of episode 2. Technically, those would be like two separate fights in a way, because Obi-Wan fights him first, and then Anakin fights him separately, but they're combining them as one, and I guess that's okay. I'm going to say that it is fine. There's a lot of extra dynamics that go into this fight that I think a lot of people don't really realize. This fight wasn't necessarily supposed to be something glamorous, something like a spectacle of episode 1 or episode 3. This fight was supposed to show just how powerful Dooku really is with the dark side. Not just that, but also show how much Anakin has to come from the point where he was in episode 2 to where we see him later on in episode 3. So while this fight alone is kind of okay, by the time episode 3 rolls around and Anakin finally takes down Dooku, it's just very poetic, and so I think for that reason it becomes fine. So I can't put it as that's booty, but if you put it on that's booty, then I can understand it, but for me, that's not booty. Okay, moving on to the next one. This one is Dooku versus Yoda. I think it is fine. I'm gonna probably put it a little bit ahead of the Anakin versus Dooku and Obi-Wan versus Dooku. And the reason for this is because I love the fact that Yoda has a lightsaber and he does all the acrobatics. I know that there's a lot of older fans of the Star Wars, original trilogy who absolutely despise it. I always thought it was cool. I thought it made sense for a Jedi Master to be able to be a Jedi Master with a lightsaber and the Force. That might be weird to some of the OGs, but I just kind of figured that would make sense, but I don't know. Now, of course, I'm just trying to wrestle the jimmies. I understand the argument against it. People like to think of Yoda as more as like the wisdom type of Jedi, where he wouldn't actually need a lightsaber to fight. But at the end of the day, it's Yoda. You know, Yoda is one of the most powerful Jedi we know of, why wouldn't he have a lightsaber? I get the idea. He can usually handle a lot of different things with the Force, but as we saw in the prequels, sometimes he faces threats the Force cannot help him with. So he has to use a lightsaber. And to me, it always made sense, but to some, it didn't. But I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles. All right, moving on to our next one. We're jumping into episode 3. This is the first duel with Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku. I would say it's more like Anakin versus Dooku, but overall they're counted as one big fight. And I'm gonna put this as good. I always like this duel. I mean, this is another one that's very short but sweet to me. Revenge of the Sith didn't have as much time to tell this massive story. They had to really bring a lot of different dynamics and plot lines together to make that movie work. And I think that this fight was a very good one. I actually kind of wish that this was longer. I mean, it's not like amazing, but like I mentioned earlier, the poetic element that comes back from what we saw in episode 2, we see how far Anakin has come. And you can just look at that without even having to watch the Clone Wars. You can tell that Anakin is a different character, but he has become much more powerful as well. He's become the Jedi he has always set out to be. This is like in Macbeth, when Macbeth proves that he is a hero before he finally starts to fall to, the villain side of things. And that's kind of what we see here. Anakin proved that he is not only more powerful than Dooku now, but he is the hero of our story, who will soon become the fallen hero of our story. Now, I understand if people had complaints about this fight, and that's okay, but for me, I think it's good, so it's gonna go in the good section. Next one, we have General Grievous and Kenobi. So their lightsaber duel is actually really brief compared to their overall fight, but I'm going to probably put this in it's good. And mostly the reason for this is because Obi-Wan and Grievous, especially if you watch the Clone Wars, they've always kind of been like arch enemies. I mean, of course, before they brought Maul back, Maul is more like Obi-Wan's arch enemy now, but before Maul was brought back into canon, it was Grievous and Obi-Wan. And it's interesting to kind of see a Jedi Master at work taking on a foe like Grievous. So, like I mentioned before, it was really cool, but now with all the extra context you get from the Clone Wars and, the comics that kind of explain more things about them, it just adds to the overall goodness of it, so it's good. Next one, we have Mace versus Palpatine. This is in episode 3, right after Grievous. I think that this one is fine. And this one might be a little controversial. I know a lot of people love this fight, and the reason why I think this is fine is because out of all the fights in this entire movie, I felt like this one was just too short. I actually did a video on this. If I find it, I'll leave a link. But if you want to check it out, go check out my videos. You'll eventually find it. Where there's this big split in the fandom where people don't really know who actually won that fight. There's two separate views on the situation. There's the one view where Mace beat Palpatine, no questions asked. And then there's the other view where Palpatine gave up on purpose. And for me, I'm kind of in the middle of both of those. So I personally believe that when Mace and Palpatine first started fighting, Palpatine was planning on holding off Mace for as long as possible until Anakin showed up. And then he started realizing Mace is actually kind of more powerful than he was expecting, and now he's starting to get beat. So he's just kind of holding his own until Anakin shows up, and then that's when the whole thing goes down. So that's my perspective. It's kind of a combination of both of those, like I mentioned. So I might be wrong, but that's how I feel. But overall, when it comes to this scene, like I mentioned, I do feel like it was a little short, but while it was short, it was sweet. So I'm gonna give it, it's fine. Okay, next one, we jump to the end of episode 3 where Yoda is versing Palpatine. I'm going to put this one at the front of it's good. And the reason for this is because this is one of those fights that fans had speculated for years. Because we knew Yoda was the most powerful Jedi. We knew that Palpatine was the most powerful Sith. And to finally see the best of the best kind of just clash, that was something amazing. And at the end of the day, Yoda does technically lose the fight, but as far as the different banter going on between Yoda and Palpatine, and before the fight actually begins, and to see them just fully using all their power, destroying the Senate room and stuff, that's just really good to me. However, I can't put it at amazing because it does kind of feel like fan service in a way. I think it's done in a way that fan service should be done though. If you're going to do fan service, you got to make sure that it serves the story overall. I think it did that. So, while it's not amazing, I still think it's good. All right, next one we have Anakin versus Obi-Wan at the end of episode 3. And you guys already know where this is going. It's amazing. It is the best Star Wars lightsaber duel we've seen out of the entire franchise. I don't think any of these other ones are going to top that one. It's just overall so epic, so good, so interesting. So it is what it is. That's how I feel. You might disagree, but if you disagree, your opinion's wrong. And that's just the way it is sometimes. Okay, we're jumping into the original trilogy, and we're starting off with Vader versus Obi-Wan, the very first lightsaber duel we've ever seen. And I'm gonna have to put it in its fine. I'll probably put it right there. And people might get mad at me for that. The truth is, in the end of the day, this was the very first lightsaber duel, right? And I respect that for that reason. But since then, lightsaber duels have continued to evolve. So it makes sense that lightsaber duels that came after it are supposed to be better. So, if you look at it like that, I'm not necessarily attacking this fight because I really do still love this lightsaber fight. However, if you stack it up against others, it just isn't as good. And I understand the emotion behind the fight, as the original trilogy supremacists like to always say. But for me, there are just more superior lightsaber duels. If you look at that fight, regardless of how amazing it was at the time, watch it again. It is janky. It is slow. It's clunky. It looks kind of ugly to watch. There have been more superior lightsaber duels since then. Like I keep saying, I respect this duel. I love this duel. I love the characters fighting each other. However, there are better lightsaber duels as far as all the different elements that enter into what makes a lightsaber duel. So, I'm going to leave it at that, and we're going to continue on. Okay, next one, Empire Strikes Back, Luke versus Vader. This is amazing. I'm going to have to put it probably right behind Revenge of the Sith. The reason for this is, while I do feel that, Episode 1's lightsaber duel is much more entertaining to watch, there's something about the duel between Vader and Luke in this, and Luke is pretty much fighting an unwinnable battle. Vader isn't going full strength. He's not trying to necessarily kill Luke. He's testing him out and really just getting a feel for, Luke's power. And it just feels amazing. Sure, it's kind of slower compared to some of the newer lightsaber duels, but overall, the extra elements that go into the fight, it makes it just an amazing fight. So it goes right there. Next one, we have Vader versus Luke on the Death Star. I'm going to probably put this one actually right behind the Phantom Menace. So the reason why I'm putting it there is because while it is a better choreographed, more action-packed lightsaber duel compared to the Empire Strikes Back, I just feel like there's elements to it that are just kind of a little more hindering. And I think it is mostly because of the events leading up to it. The film itself is weaker compared to the Empire Strikes Back, where Empire Strikes Back continues to hit you and hit you and hit you and delivers an amazing ending. The ending of this is still amazing, but the film that precedes it is just kind of like, okay. So I think once you throw all those elements together, the lightsaber duel is still amazing, but I do have to put it behind Revenge of the Sith, Empire Strikes Back, and the Phantom Menace. Just barely behind the Phantom Menace, though. So that's how I feel. Okay, now we're moving into the sequel trilogy, and this is going to be a fun one. So first we have Finn versus Kylo. I think this one is fine. I'm actually going to put this one right in front of Qui-Gon versus Maul. I used to actually despise this fight because just different circumstances with the narrative, but when I rewatch it, it seems very gritty, and I like that. It feels like these two are both wounded guys, both angry at each other, and they're just swinging bats at each other. I understand that kind of messes with the idea that Kylo is a trained lightsaber duelist, but considering he was wounded, I can kind of forgive that. And because of that reason, I'm going to put it as it's fine. Like I mentioned, mostly because of the grittiness behind the duel. So That's how I feel about that. Next one, we're going into Rey versus Kylo, which takes place right after that previous fight I just talked about with Finn and Kylo. I'm gonna put this one. I think it's good. When I first watched it, it really made me mad because, like I mentioned, Kylo should have completely wiped the floor with these two people. But like I also just mentioned, Kylo was injured and very distraught, very angry. Clearly not in the best state of mind to be dueling against someone who shouldn't have any lightsaber experience, but that's another argument for it. As far as, you know, the story part of this lightsaber duel doesn't really work out, but the lightsaber duel itself is very fun to watch, entertaining. I'm gonna put it as good. Next, we jump into Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, everyone's favorite movie, and we have the throne room fight scene. Now, this isn't technically a lightsaber fight, more like a lightsaber encounter. But I will say this. I actually think this is good. I'm going to probably put this right there. Now, here's the thing. I understand if you slow down the choreography on this fight, it is so messy. It looks like a mess. But if you watch it in real time, as you know, the time you're supposed to watch it in, it actually looks pretty good. And not only that, but the cinematography of the fight and like the red hue, it almost seems like Rey and Kylo are fighting in hell and they have demons attacking them. I just like the symbolism of the entire fight itself as well. So while there really isn't a lightsaber duel, this entire encounter, it just looks really interesting to me. And I think it is good. So it's gonna go right there. If you don't like it, sue me. Okay, now we're moving into Kylo versus Luke. This one's fine. I can't put its booty. I'm gonna put it. I'll put it like right here. Yeah, it'll go there. The reason why I have it in its fine is because, well, once again, it's not technically a lightsaber duel. But while I understand that Luke is teaching Ben a lesson, the events that precede this bother me. It just makes the lightsaber duel seem unneeded. With that said, still kind of entertaining to watch. But it's fine. So, yeah. Okay, next one. This is episode 9, the first lightsaber duel, when Rey and Kylo are kind of like teleporting from the ship down to the planet. I actually think this is a really cool fight. I'm gonna probably put this a little bit in front of the throne room fight. And the reason for that is because while it's not really intriguing or, you know, choreographed super well, it's the idea of the fight, I think, that sells it. You know, these two characters are kind of fighting through time and space, and I know it doesn't really make sense as far as the rest of the Star Wars continuity goes, but the sequel trilogy really just kind of made their own continuity up anyways. So, as far as their continuity goes, I think it was a very interesting fight because we never saw anything like it before. So, it's gonna go right there. Okay, for our second last lightsaber duel, this is Kylo versus Rey on the Death Star destruction part. I'm gonna put it as it's fine. Yeah, you know, it can go right there. I think it's a pretty decent lightsaber duel. It's not as good as the one in The Force Awakens, but I understand that this lightsaber duel was more about getting to the point where Kylo needs to come back and turn to Ben. They were running out of time in the movie. I just feel like this was the lightsaber duel that was supposed to take place at the end of JJ's episode 8. Like, Kylo was supposed to come back to the light in the end of the 8th film instead of in the end of the 9th film. Nothing really spectacular to it. I guess you could say that it kind of mirrors the idea of the fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan, where Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting on a lava planet, they're fighting on a rainy planet. So, that's cool, but it's just a fine lightsaber duel. There's nothing really special about it. And we come to the final lightsaber fight with Kylo versus the Knights of Ren. And I think this is pretty cool. I'm probably going to put it right behind The Force Awakens. It was just cool to kind of see Kylo finally being the badass we know he can be. The Force Awakens kind of hinted towards it, but in the end, sort of, I think, accidentally ruined that. And then The Last Jedi just tiptoed around it. So it's really cool to see Kylo, or I should say Ben, being the lightsaber master he should have been shown to be, you know, back in The Force Awakens. So it was finally cool to see it. It just only happened in the last 15 minutes of the movie that he dies in. So, go figure. So that has been my Star Wars The Skywalker Saga Lightsaber Battles tier list ranking. How would you rank these? Let me know in the comments below. Like I mentioned, guys, if you think of any other tier list you'd like to see me do, let me know in the comments below, and if I do your suggestion, I will give you a shout out. And with that said, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, if you enjoy this video and you'd like to see more, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. It really helps me out. I love you. But that's it for now, guys. I'll catch you later. Peace.